When Xpro3 was first introduced in 2019, I hadn't started shooting film yet. So the idea of a camera catered towards a quote-unquote purer photography experience compared to other mirrorless and DSLR cameras in the market seemed a bit alien to me. But since then, I have fallen in love with film photography and have come to love the slower process of making photos. So much so that for the projects that I'm currently working on, I cannot imagine not shooting with a film camera and on film. So that's still very much my bread and butter. But for the past few months, the last year even, I've been mulling over the idea of having a daily carry that's not a film camera, mainly for economical reasons. I was on the lookout for a digital camera and Xpro3 popped up in my radar again, and I was like, you know what? This is probably a good time to consider this as an option. Hey, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, my name is Satya and I make videos about photography, filmmaking, and creative journey. So, Xpro3. Having been a Fuji camera user myself for over 5 years with my X-T2 and having used plenty of their lenses, I know and love Fuji's design choices, their build quality and image quality when it comes to their lenses, and I'm quite familiar with their menu offerings and film simulations, so I knew that the learning curve was not going to be so steep and that I'll feel right at home for the most part with this camera. In addition to that, having shot with the Fuji film camera, the GA645, I realized that I actually enjoy shooting with the rangefinder, so I liked that the Xpro3 offered an optical viewfinder in addition to their EVF. And I'd be lying if I said looks didn't factor in. It's a pretty damn good looking camera. I bought the Dur Black version with the 23mm f2 lens as I needed something wide enough but not too wide to not be able to shoot decent portraits without distortion. So for the past 3 months or so, I've been taking it out pretty much anytime I go out. And I've made some of my favorite day-to-day photos with this camera, including some portraits. My folks were here for a few weeks and we were in Paris and Rome for a couple of weeks during that time. So I took that opportunity to take loads of images of them. We do have a lot of posed photos of my parents, but I wanted to get candid shots and I got quite a few that I'm actually happy with. From my experience with the X-T2, I knew that the JPEGs that Fuji cameras produce are actually pretty good. And this is a step up from that processor and the sensor. So, I knew that this was gonna meet or exceed that quality. And this is partially achieved by the film simulation that's made available by Fuji in their cameras. And we're entering the territory of choices for days here. There is 17 different modes right out the box, and my personal favorites so far are the Acros and the classic negative film simulations. But there are 7 custom setting spaces for saving 7 distinct camera settings, which allows you to choose film simulation, tweak things like grain, white balance, dynamic range, tone curve, etc., and flick to them whenever you want, depending on the scene or the situation. And for film simulations that are not in the camera, I use a website called Fuji Xpro3, which some of you are probably already familiar with. And I've been shooting mostly with their Ilford HP5 simulation. It is quite a punchy look compared to the actual film, but the grain and the general aesthetic are actually pretty close to the film. So yeah, combining the quality of the JPEGs and the film simulations offered, your life as a photographer is made a lot more easier and a lot more fun, in my opinion, especially for me using it as a daily carry. I'm sure at some point in the future I'll shoot film and film simulation side by side. I'll probably make a video about it. It has a hybrid electronic viewfinder and an optical viewfinder, and you could choose between the two with the flick of a switch. I've shot 99% of the time with the OVF. There is an option to have a tiny electronic rangefinder screen at the bottom right of your OVF, and that acts as a mini EVF while allowing you to view the scene and shoot with still an optical viewfinder. I think this is a well implemented feature that has all the benefits of shooting with a classic rangefinder style camera with the twist of a modern digital mirrorless, and all the important details are overlaid in the OVF. If it doesn't look like I'm gushing all over this, believe me, I am. There are a couple of quirks though when it comes to the viewfinder. One, the magnification factor is 0.52 times as opposed to Xpro3, its predecessor, which allowed you to choose between 0.36x and 0.6x magnification depending on the lenses that you're using. And the mini EVF screen that pops up on the bottom right can actually only be used in single or all autofocus modes. So if you primarily shoot with tracking or zone focus AF mode, you won't be able to use the mini EVF function, which is a shame. The hideaway LCD screen is the perfect nudge for regular digital shooters, in my opinion, to focus more on shooting, and a welcome addition for film shooters like myself, because I'm not going to miss not being able to see the images right after I take them. This is one of the reasons why I bought this camera. And the second smaller screen, the sub monitor, that's the only thing you'll see when the big screen is tucked away. And it has two modes, the classic and the standard. Classic will allow you to see the film simulation, neat little animation, and the standard will let you see all the important details like the ISO, shutter speed, aperture, frames per second, white balance, and so on.
How I love the view from this window. The flowers hung, boxes everywhere. When I told you that I needed someplace to go, you said, Paris, love, I'm taking you there. It's the kind of place that makes you wanna stay. And I think the city might be broken-hearted, but when I'm with you, my troubles far away. With you by my side, there's nothing else I want. The view
There are quite a few features in this camera. There's some that I like and some that I wish were better implemented. For instance, there's a autofocus limiter feature, which is essentially where you can set the minimum and the maximum focusing distance. It comes with two presets, I think 2 meter to infinity and 5 meter to infinity. When you choose that, what it means is, you know, in the autofocus mode, when you're out and about, the autofocus is limited for that distance, and it also has a choice for you to choose point A and point B, the shorter and the farther focusing distance. But in the menu, in the manual, it says that if your lens's minimum focusing distance is shorter than the minimum focusing distance that you choose, focus limiter will not work. Focus magnification, this is not a groundbreaking feature, but in manual focus mode, when you try to focus with focus peaking, as soon as you rotate the focusing ring, magnification kicks in and you'll see the focusing area zoomed in. This helps with easier and better manual focusing experience. The focus bracketing feature lets you choose again point A and point B, the shorter and the farther focusing distance, and then it lets you choose the number of focusing steps and the number of frames you want to shoot between point A and point B. You can also choose auto mode in this option, which the camera will choose the number of focusing steps and the number of frames that it needs to shoot to cover the entire focusing range, which is pretty neat for focus bracketing.
It's the kind of place that makes you want to stay, and I think the city might be broken-hearted, but when I'm with you, my trouble's far away. With you by my side, there's nothing else I want. The view is alright in Paris and wherever we are.
There are loads of function buttons. There are 3 function buttons. There's Q button, which lets you choose all the different camera settings. There's touch function for all 4 directions, which is all pretty great. But the placement of buttons is something that I do take issue with. It is a small camera. I don't think I have particularly chunky fingers, but the buttons do seem a bit too clustered, especially in the area where I place my thumb. And the settings don't change accidentally while I'm shooting, but when I'm carrying, you know, after a while when I pick up the camera back to shoot, something or other has changed. I accidentally pressed the Q button or the function button that I've assigned something to, or even the exposure compensation dial. But there is a lock function that you can use to lock selected functions so that things don't accidentally change. I do wish the exposure compensation dial is slightly more rigid so that I don't have to go into the lock function to unlock it every time I want to use it. Maybe I'm nitpicking here, but I do wish that this is at least the exposure compensation dial maybe has a lock button on it. The weather resistance worked great in Rome when it was pouring down for a couple of days. I didn't shy away from shooting in that weather, and it worked as expected, given that I have shot X-T2 in worse weather conditions before. And I'm really glad that I picked up the weather resistant version of this lens. It is a super light camera. That's one of the main considerations for it to being a daily carry. Maybe anything will feel light after shooting with the Pentax 6x7, but it is genuinely a pleasure to carry around. I've carried it all day, every day for weeks and didn't feel a thing. It can shoot really good quality video in f-log at 17:9 DCI, 4K 30 frames per second. I did make use of it in Rome and Paris because I didn't want to carry my hefty cinema camera. To wrap it up, I'm pleased to have bought the Xpro3 and I'm looking forward to shooting more with it. I'm sure I'll have much more to share in terms of opinions in 6 months or so. But for now, I'm excited to be shooting with this camera and to have this as a daily carry. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.
From Paris or wherever we are.